Hey friends, it's Utasho here, or Steven, depending on your pronunciation, and this video is an in-depth guide discussing a whole lot of things you need to know about the new Shopkeeper forgiveness mechanic in Spelunky 2. I will be covering how forgiveness is obtained, and its related mechanics and interactions. I will also be explaining as many unique interactions as I'm aware of that count towards angering shopkeepers. But there are so many strange and unexpected interactions in Spelunky 2, and there isn't enough research yet to document them all. Many unique interactions are also very inconsistent, so bear with me. If I miss any interactions that you are aware of, forgive me, and please feel free to add them in the comments so we can accumulate the knowledge and make everybody aware. Also, feel free to see the video description for timestamps if you're only looking for certain pieces of information. By now, anybody who has been playing Spelunky is likely intimately familiar with angry shopkeepers who will try to murder you at every corner should you accidentally make them mad. Luckily, in Spelunky 2, we've been blessed with the ability to be forgiven, so we aren't necessarily screwed for an entire run when a shopkeeper loses his cool. The first thing to understand about forgiveness is the new sin value. Whenever a shopkeeper is made angry at the player by any means, the player will accumulate an amount of sin points depending on their crime. The amount of sin points earned for a crime depends on which category of sin the crime falls under, and there are only two categories of crime: assault or murder, which I will explain in more depth later in the video. As long as the player has more than 0 sin points, the shopkeepers will remain angry and aggressive towards the player, as well as continuing to spawn and aggressively guard level exits, with some exceptions. No exit shopkeepers will ever spawn in Olmec's Lair on floor 3-1, Tiamat's Throne on floor 6-4, Hundun's Hideaway on floor 7-4, Duat on floor 4-4, or Abzu on floor 4-4, the Eggplant World on floor 7-2, or at any point in the Cosmic Ocean. Once sin has been accumulated, it will immediately start dropping by 1 point every level cleared. It is important to note, however, that players can still commit more crimes at any point, which will continue adding to their sin total for the run. If the player manages to clear enough levels without committing more crimes, their sin total will eventually drop back to 0, at which point they will receive a message on screen notifying them that they have been forgiven, and shopkeepers will no longer be hostile. This means that no more shopkeepers will spawn at level exits, and you may go back to buying from their shops freely, if you have the money. The first category of crime that a player can commit is assault. Committing assault will add 2 sin points to the player's sin total. I want to mention right now that there are tons of crazy and unpredictable interactions that may occur between shopkeepers, the player, and the environment. And when it comes to traps and monsters and environmental hazards messing with the shopkeepers, the community has not yet been able to confirm or deny every unique scenario and its classification as assault or not. I will do my best to cover as many basic and important assault interactions as I can, as well as some unique scenarios to watch out for. But if I miss some, or if you know of more yourself, please let me and others know in the comments. It is also important to note that assault can only be committed once per level, so even if you commit several assault crimes on the same level, the maximum number of sin points you can accumulate for assault is only 2 points per level. Let's talk about what counts as assault. I'm going to try to show footage for as many examples as I can, but again, there are so many random and difficult examples to set up that it would take ages to get and show them all. The first and most obvious example of assault is attacking the shopkeeper. Any damage dealt to the shopkeeper directly by the player will immediately anger the shopkeeper. This includes whipping, bomb throwing, shotgunning, and pretty much the use of any other tool or weapon. Even non-damaging weapons such as the web gun, camera, and freeze ray will still count as assault when fired at a shopkeeper. Using the attack of any mounts will also anger the shopkeeper. even the axolotl's bubble, despite it not actually doing damage. Destroying any part of the shopkeeper's shop also counts as an assault. This can be done using bombs, explosive enemies such as robots or UFOs, tools like the Matic pickaxe, or environmental hazards like a rolling boulder or the volcano drill. In addition to destroying shops, it will also count as assault if the player destroys any part of a shopkeeper vault, which are the sealed off chambers full of chests and a shopkeeper. Destroying either a shop or a vault will still add sin points even if the shopkeeper is already angry from a previous sin. Stealing from a shop is another quick way to get on a shopkeeper's bad side. Moving anything out of an unaggroed shop that you have not paid for will count as stealing and will be classified as assault. This includes picking the items up and running outside of the shop, whipping them outside of the shop, and will even count if some creature that the player has interacted with moves items out of the shop. The good news is that stealing only counts as assault if the shopkeeper isn't mad yet. However, if the shopkeeper is already aggroed, then stealing will no longer count as assault, meaning any shop the player comes across, if the shopkeeper is already mad, can be stolen from safely without gaining any more sin points. In terms of monsters, environmental hazards, and outside forces in general, here are all the aggro rules that I'm aware of. Generally speaking, most monsters that hurt the shopkeepers will hurt and kill them for free as long as the player hasn't interacted with them too much. This means the player can potentially bait monsters into the shop to kill the shopkeeper and rob him freely without committing any crimes or gaining any sin. A couple confirmed examples of monsters that are safe to have kill shopkeepers are giant spiders, horned lizards, any mounts that the player hasn't tamed, boomerang throwing tiki men, and man-trap plants. Interestingly enough, a magma man that the player has not interacted with yet will freely kill a shopkeeper without counting as assault. But if the player has whipped the magma man, and then it hurts the shopkeeper, it will count as an assault from the player. Most naturally occurring level traps will not count against the player either. Shopkeepers getting hit by arrow traps, totem traps, or falling platforms, just to name a few, will not add to the player's sin total if they were set off by the shopkeeper. It also seems like setting a bear trap in front of a shopkeeper and then having the shopkeeper walk into it will not count as a crime. The final thing that counts as assault is rolling a die from a dice minigame shopkeeper that has already been rolled once. If you pay to play the game and roll the same die twice in a row, it is considered cheating, because you are trying to re-roll a better number, and this will immediately anger the shopkeeper and add to your sin total. Something I want to mention before moving on to the next section is that stealing from a shopkeeper is actually the first step in a side quest with an NPC named Sparrow. I won't be covering this quest in this video, but I wanted to bring it to your attention. I will make another video specifically dedicated to this quest line, and I will link it on screen once it's completed. We've talked a lot about assault, which is the easiest and most abundant sin. But the second categorization of sin that exists is murder. Murder is exactly what it sounds like, and is simply the death of a shopkeeper, and murder is worth double the sin points of assault, putting it at 4 points. Just like assault, there are some instances of murder that will count against the player, and some that will not. Once again, the general rule of thumb is that any murder caused directly by the player will be considered a sin, and will add 4 points to their sin total. Murder can be accomplished many ways by the player, much like assault, and mostly revolve around using weapons, tools, or bombs. Unlike traps not counting as assault when triggered by the shopkeeper, most lethal environmental hazards will count as murder, even if not directly caused by the player. Shopkeepers falling onto spikes or jumping into lava does seem to count against the player. For example, Although, falling into the abyss of the ice caves seems to be a safe exception that will not add murder points to the player's sin counter. Another main exception is that shopkeepers killing other shopkeepers does not seem to count as assault or murder, which can be extremely convenient if you ever find yourself outnumbered by angry shopkeepers. An important detail to note about murder is that any death caused by the player that isn't considered insta-death will count as both assault and murder, earning the player 6 sin points. The final feature of murder that I'll be covering is another new feature in Spelunky 2. As if having hordes of angry shopkeepers guarding every exit wasn't enough, now the shopkeepers will group together and spawn kill camps if you murder too many of them. I'm not 100% sure of the exact spawn conditions for these kill camps. It might be a total sin count that needs to be reached, or a number of shopkeepers murdered without being forgiven. But it seems as though murdering 4 to 6 shopkeepers in a row will guarantee a spawn. These camps are wooden structures that will spawn in the middle of the main path, and they will be filled with multiple shopkeepers trying to kill the player. These camps can spawn in almost all of the zones and are only restricted from spawning in the same locations as the shopkeeper exit guard restrictions. This means shopkeeper kill camps can't spawn in Olmec's Lair, Tiamat's Throne, Hundun's Hideaway, Duat or Abzu, the Eggplant World, or again at any point in the Cosmic Ocean. The last thing I want to leave you with in this video is an extremely brief recap, as well as an example of forgiveness, so you can calculate it and see it in action. There are 2 classifications of sins. There is assault and there is murder. Anything that counts as assault will add 2 sin points to the player's sin total, and anything that counts as murder will add 4 sin points to the player's sin total. Only 1 count of assault can be committed per level. Every level completion subtracts 1 sin from the player's sin total. If the player manages to get their sin total back down to 0, they will be forgiven and everything will go back to normal in regards to shops and shopkeepers. In this example, I commit assault by stealing the bomb box and immediately gain 2 sin points. Interestingly enough, I don't actually gain any murder points here because the shopkeeper ended up killing himself with his own bullets reflected off the shield that was sitting in the shop. These bullets also detonate the other bomb bag in the room, which destroys the shop, but seeing as you can only commit assault once per level, I don't gain any more sin points for that either. This leaves me with 2 sin points on floor 1-2. I then clear the level and proceed to floor 1-3, which subtracts a sin point from my total, leaving me at 1 sin point. After screwing around and sacrificing some bodies for a while on this floor in hopes of getting a good item, I eventually make it to the bottom where there should be an angry shopkeeper guarding the exit. I notice that he has actually already been killed by the totem trap next to the door, which means I don't gain any sin points since he activated the naturally spawned trap himself. There is also another angry shopkeeper from a shop that spawned near the exit, and I proceed to bait him into the totem traps to die as well. Again, since it was a naturally spawned trap that he activated himself, it does not count as me committing assault or murder, and I am free to proceed to floor 1-4, where I subtract 1 more sin point off my total, bringing me down to 0, where you can see that I received the notification for being forgiven. If I had directly hurt or murdered either of those shopkeepers myself without using the level trap, I would have accumulated more sin points and I would have needed to go even further than floor 1-4 to be forgiven. Thanks for watching, everybody. That was my complete guide on angering shopkeepers and how to be forgiven. If you found the video helpful and informative, please hit that like button and don't forget to share with other people who might be looking for the same information. I'm going to be releasing many Spelunky videos breaking down as many important and useful topics as I can think of. So if you find my content enjoyable and informative, be sure to subscribe. Alright guys, see you later.